Hello, everyone, and welcome to my podcast. I would love to welcome Adam with me in a studio, actually face to face. Very different and very nice to see someone that you're working with for 6 months and show up in the door and you're like, he's taller than I thought. It's really nice to see a person in person and not just working online on Zoom all the time. So I really appreciate that you find the time and you are here with me today. And yeah, welcome.
Thanks very much for having me. Yeah, like I said, it's been 6 months. We've been talking on Zoom and online, but never had a face-to-face. So, yeah, it's awesome to actually finally get to meet you face-to-face and, and have the privilege to be on your podcast.
Yeah, this is very nice. I'm too excited. I need to just, wait for a few minutes. And look, I would love to, what was the idea why you're here? I would love you to share your experience from your leadership role, because I know you went through a lot of different changes on the way, and I think that's something that everyone who is listening can learn from. There's a lot of challenges and opportunities and obstacles that you overcame and try change and influence. And I think it's really fascinating that in 6 months' time you achieved a lot, but also you try to do more because you really care. And that really interests me when someone really cares about people. And I love that part in your leadership. That means that was kind of my motivation, probably, to invite you and also share what did you notice and how you changed. But we will start first with your journey. If you can tell us and take us through who you are, what's your story? I think that's the question, right?
Yeah, okay. My story. Well, I'm an electrician by trade. I've made the transition from being on the tools into an office-based role. And that's been a progression over probably 4 to 5 years. I had a goal for myself to be off the tools by 30, and I achieved that goal.
Nice.
And then from there was, really to try and develop my leadership skills and being able to help mentor and guide and support others through my journey. Reflect on my journey and show them that, not being on the tools is the only job that you've got. You can progress further into the office space and taking what you learn on the tools into that office-based space. So, it's been really good. I've worked for only probably 3 or 4 companies in my career, and I'm only 36, so I've still got a lot more to go. But it's been interesting. The new business I've joined, I've been there 6 months, and it was challenging to begin with because I was at a previous business for 8.5 years, so I was comfortable. I knew the processes. I knew everything, like everyone come to me and ask me for, oh, Adam, we need to do this. Oh, yeah, I know how to do that, and then stepping into a new business, I wasn't that person anymore. So, it was interesting. I had to learn to start to navigate those systems, those processes, and being introduced to a new team, getting to know that team and how they work and how they operate. And it was really good.
That's beautiful. I love that inspirational part that you decided, first of all, that you actually plan forward. You were like, I want to try it. I want to progress. That's really nice to see, especially that a lot of people in trades, they kind of stay doing the same thing because they love it. They're really skilled, and they really enjoy it. But when you think about it, there is really not progress if you don't do any personal development and you just stay doing your physical work. And look, I think it's fascinating when someone can do something with hands. I really love it and appreciate it because I'm not very good in that. That means it's really good that we have skilled people. And but I love how you take it or how you took it to the next level and say, you know what, I want to try, I want to progress, I want to see what I can do and what is out there, what is there for me. And I'll probably go deeper into that, like when or how did you decide? Like when you decided, okay, I have enough. I'm an electrician. Did you even start to do that, or did you starting like the trades and after that you decided, or?
Yeah. I became a qualified tradesman as of 2009. So I'd been in the trades for probably about 8 years. I'd say probably on the tools, doing various fly in fly out roles, working underground, working on the mines. As you do when you're young, as
normal in Western Australia.
Yeah, that's it. In Western Australia, you either work in domestic or you go to the mines, and I went to the mines. I did my time in the mines and then moved back to Perth and settled in a workshop. Yeah. And started off just as an electrician in there, and then within 6 months I was a leading hand, and then I think it was 12 months later I was supervisor. A year, maybe 18 months later, I was then became a product coordinator, went to project management, so did some further studying, did project management, went to project management, done that for 2 years, then moved back into the manufacturing space as a production manager. Yeah. So I've had different careers, or different opportunities, I'd say, probably in my career, and each of those little steps have helped me build to where I am today, which has been fantastic because you don't forget that type of knowledge that you learn along that journey. And then when you go, oh, hang on, I can remember when I had a time, or reflect on, I had an opportunity, or a situation I'm in previously, I can know how to handle that and move through that. And it's interesting because in my current role, I have those people that work for me in those roles too. So I can understand their frustrations and the challenge they're going through, and I can help support them through that too, which I found very good and uplifting for myself.
Yeah, that's very nice. And I see that you are basically naturally kind of progressed, like you're progressing through the career. It came some kind of naturally that you just became supervisor and you were moving through different things. I think also is about openness and willingness to learn what is really good, because that doesn't happen probably that often, right? Otherwise, it's really good to see that in leadership. I love that. And from perspective of, let's say, fast forward, right? Like now you are in a company. It's what is that, like 7 months?
Yeah, 7 months. Yeah, so I started there in March, and it's been 7 months. So.
Yeah, because I'm thinking, but before we started, it was like when you were actually just starting, and I know it was so excited. Like you were excited, and it was so exciting to see you in something new and kind of discovering this new journey. And I will probably go there because, like, you had so many obstacles and challenges because you started that journey and you get to know people. You started first month or second month, and the company went through a merger. I think like all that, like you finally felt like you can breathe, and it's like, yes, now I know my team. They just triple your team, and everything changed again. I mean, maybe take me through a little bit. Like, what were the major kind of challenges and obstacles that you can remember from beginning? And maybe first when you started, and after that when you went.
I can definitely reflect on that. That was definitely my. Yeah, starting in a new business, and been there 3 months, and it went through a merger, and 4 entities became one. That was challenging, that merger, but I'll go back to when I started. When I started, the team was I was starting to get to know the team. The team was small, so it wasn't large, and I say small, it's still 30 people, so it's still reasonable size, but you got to know people a little bit more one-on-one time. You get to spend a bit more time with those people because you can get out there and get to see them a bit more. But then when the merger happened, the 4 work groups come together, and then 3 of those work groups joined us all together, and then now you have to pretty much hit the reset button and start all over again. But that team went from 30 to like 55. Now it's like 60 something now. And now the opportunity to get around to try and get to every individual person like I used to, I found it very challenging, because as that merger happened, more responsibilities come online. I was not able to connect as well as I'd like to as a people person as I am, and get to understand people a bit more and have a conversation with some. I do make more of an effort of it now as things are starting to settle down. But that first from that 3 month mark, like 4 to 5th month mark, it was pretty challenging.
Yeah, can you share with us what maybe some details? Because I'm thinking, how we can help the best people that are listening. Because I know a lot of people going through that, not only in their roles, but even if they own the business, right? There is this part when you have a smaller business and you start with 4 or 5 people, you have really, really much connections like family. Now we have 20, it's kind of okay. But when it started to grow very fast into like 150, people realize that the way I was doing that, it doesn't work. Like something needs to change, because I can't, like time-wise, you don't have time to spend on one-to-ones with people. You really don't have time anymore because you have also other,
I think
responsibilities.
I think when you like said a business starts expanding to that type of number too, you start relying and trusting in your team members that you're working with. And I'm very fortunate that I have 4 direct reports that are very, very trustworthy in that regard. They know the expectations of what myself and what the business obviously expects of them, and vice versa. I know where their limitations are, and their boundaries and what they've set, and we all very clear on our own boundaries in that respect.
I will probably catch you there because I think that's the most probably biggest struggle. I would say struggle for people. That is the word trust.
Yeah.
How did you know that you can trust them? How did you came up with that? Like, okay, these people are like super cool. I can trust them. They will do everything what I believe they will do.
I think like it comes down to sort of human nature in that regard too. Like, it's trust is not something that's easily given out to, between people, because we always start on the back foot. We think that someone always got an agenda against us. So there's always that barrier you got to work through. But that just comes through, hey, look, I know my production manager I work with, we said, let's go and grab a coffee. So we just had a sit down and conversation. I gave him my little life story. He gave me his life story. And then we just started there. And now, we catched up yesterday afternoon, as we always do on a Thursday afternoon, how reflect on how the week was. And, we, like I said, we had a great week like this week. We managed to hit some goals. We've done this, we did that. So it was like we're building. That's how I build that trust and that rapport with my team. It's just catching up with them and having a bit of a chat with them at the end of the week and saying, look, that was a good week. What are we looking forward to next week? What's coming up next week that we can focus on? And that, I think that's the foundation part of where that trust comes from, that reliance on each other. And, I think that respect side of things comes from it too. And that's a big one, I think, that aligns with trust as well.
That is, would you say that you catch up for coffee and big part of that was also that you share some personal story and you try to understand the other person, right, in front of you? Not from perspective like, hey, what did you achieve? What is your role? This is cool. But actually, let's go deeper. What is behind this person? What is the story? What are your struggles or what are your wins and challenges?
100%, Alex. Like, we get to, like, how was your weekend? Or what are you up for this weekend? Like, I went away camping this weekend. And we get to know each other's...
Normal, right?
Exactly right. Just having a normal conversation. But from that normal conversation, that's where that trust starts building up. You get, like I said, you make it personal. They get to know the insights of you. You get the insights of them, and then you feel like you can start opening up about more personal problems, struggles, good news stories, etc. And then once you've got that, then you've got that trust in that person, because if they're willing to openly up and share those types of news with you, or those problems or challenges they're facing, they know they trust you. They know you're going to support them, and they'll do pretty much anything for you, and vice versa. Do you know what I mean? So it's I think, like I said, trust is that foundation one, and honesty is another one. That's a big, huge one. Yeah,
I can see also what you're saying is basically for all people probably who are listening. If you want to build a trust, or if you want to have some kind of relationship with your people, or with anyone, it's actually not waiting for them to share, but also start maybe sharing your stuff, because what other person does is that reaction or relation towards you, like, hey, this person actually trusts me, he's sharing personal stuff. I mean, I find that very important because you are very open, and I think from beginning you started to, develop, or you were developing those relationships with people, right?
Yeah. No, it is. It's like like you said. It's opening up personally. You be able to share those personal, said news is, information, things like that. But obviously not too personal, but to the point where that you feel comfortable speaking about it to that individual. I think that's that is the level of trust that you can show. And demonstrate with that. It's very interesting.
Interesting word as well. Yeah, comfort. Like we have that comfort in relationships and in conversation. I think that's actually very nice, or I'll say, right? Yeah. Comfort. And I would love to go a little bit deeper, right?
Typical Alex. Let's go deeper. Let's talk about it.
But I probably, because I know that like we're talking about these nice things, right? Like everything is great. And I feel like we had a lot of different conversations, and I know you always manage pretty well, right? Like you always implement everything, you learn so much, and even your, like in general, your development, it's just you seeking all the time. You try to learn, read, listen, and you're trying things, like you straight away going for it. And I feel like because it's your nature, then I can just see you all the time evolving, in different directions. And probably I would love to capture that today, just to see when you came to the new team, that was like 7 months ago, and you started slowly to get to know people. How did you feel about it? How do you feel about it now from internal perspective, right? Like, did you have enough trust that time, or actually now it actually really is building up because you can see how you can overcome some obstacles or challenges that are coming your way? And yeah, how do you feel internally? Like, was there anything that helped you or you learned that actually helped you to have different relationship with yourself and that influenced your personal, professional life or any area of your life, right? Like when we talk about, I don't know, health and other stuff. Yeah.
I'll try and reflect on something here. It's, how can I respond back to this one?
However you feel.
Internally, yeah, I do admit, like, I have, over probably the last couple of months, been a bit up and down. Like, I haven't had that equilibrium of emotions I've been able to sort of capture and sort of sustain that emotion. So I've always been told, and we've had a couple of conversations around that, like my emotions seem to, peak and trough too frequently. And I don't think that's me internally. That's just how, I'm trying to regulate that and trying to understand that and probably deep dive in that a little bit more, which I know we're working on currently at the moment. But over that 3-month period, if I say when I started, I think that level of emotion that was actually pretty stable. I wasn't challenged. I just found a nice, happy medium where I was very comfortable in, and I was happy operating. I was clear of mind. Like, I knew exactly what I needed to do and get things done. And that was it. And then as I sort of probably got to know some certain individuals within the team and also not just in my team, but externally from that team as well, I started to probably understand how they operate too, but I was letting their perception or their sort of probably how they view me probably get to me a little bit, and that's what's probably causing that equilibrium of the peak and trough in that internal response. But I hope that answers your question, Alex.
I really valued that.
That's probably how I probably would say I felt. But yeah, I think like certain individuals I know within my team, I don't have that. Like, I can be having a conversation now. We've been talking online for 6 months, but talking face to face, it feels like we've been knowing each other for years. You know what I mean? And that's the type of relationship I've got with my team as well. Like, I could talk to them about anything and anything.
Yeah.
And, when you've got like I said, when you've got kids or you've got something that you can connect on as well. Like one of my managers has a 4-wheel drive, and I've got a 4-wheel drive, so we start talking about cars and we talk about this, and it's interesting when like I said, you're building those relationships, those trusts, you find those connectors that you can connect with people as well that help you build those rapport, that in. You feel comfortable, you feel safe, you feel valued as well when you're talking to that individual too, because what I'm saying to them, they're actually openly accepting and responding back to that too. So I think I hope that answers your question, Alex, around how do I internally feel when I'm talking with individual people.
Yeah.
That's generally how I feel that pulse.
Yeah, I would definitely go and ask again some more.
Yeah, that's okay.
No, it's great. I love that, and thank you for sharing that. I think that's really, because that's really personal, right? Like talking about emotions and feelings, it's not very easy, especially we don't know, right, who is listening. But I really value that, because I know it is actually, that is the part that is so important, because I think a lot of people, not just managers and leaders, a lot of people find themselves to live by other people's expectations, trying to fulfill that picture of what they think of me. I want to be perfect for them. I want to be sure that they are happy with me. And we try to change behaviors all the time when we are with some different people, just to be sure we kind of people please them, right? Like it's pleasing them, make them happy, and make us look good as well. And it's very normal, because there is a pressure, right? There's a pressure from your team. There's a pressure to stay in the company or stay somewhere and have income. You have kids, that's family. This all is building us up to start to live by, or maybe autopilot, and start to be living the life that is influenced actually by environment. And I love that you are reflecting on that, because I think that is most important part, when you understand that actually I was calm and I was fine. And when I realized what actually really going on in the team, that I, started to be a little bit up and down, and it's influencing you. Do you have any maybe tools or anything that helped you to navigate that? Because I know that's a big topic for a lot of people.
Obviously when we first started talking about critical alignment model. That was probably one one that I looked at and gravitated more towards. And I spoke to my team about that, and then we talked about especially environment, like environment, and that's where I think like that trust and that openness comes from, because if the environment is set, and when, like I say, I talk to my direct reports, that environment is set pretty well with them because they're openly able to talk to me about anything and everything, and when stuff's going wrong, it's it's not the point where I'm like, okay, like, oh, what, telling them off, like, well, you've done this wrong. It's like, well, how do we get to that point? Like, what was there any telltale signs? Was there any indicators that we got to that point where, we didn't hit that margin or hit that job, or do we hit that sort of, I'd say, milestone on the job, And they're like, oh, this happened or that happened. Okay, cool. So what can we do not to, let that happen again? And that environment of that safe environment, I think that's what definitely sets a tone for people to be open and honest and trustworthy with each other.
Yep.
Then when you start looking at it, I can't remember the other parts of the critical alignment model off the top of my head. You put me on a bit of a spot. To be honest.
That's okay. You don't need to teach people a critical alignment
model.
That's
okay. But I'd say that's probably
values, because that was the part of environment that you really build up.
Yeah.
Maybe that's
I think and we talked about values. As a business, we have our values as well that we hold ourselves to and we work towards. And I have my own personal values, and so does each individual. And when you start talking about values with individuals as well, you find that your values sometimes also aligns with someone else's values too. So again, that's another part where you start building relationships. You can bring that closeness and understanding, and again, you're building on that trust factor, because I think that's the part where that is probably the big fundamental part. Is, like I said, we talked about, is trust. If you can build a relationship based on trust, it can withstand anything. And that's what, again, I feel like I have with my team, and it's reflective within some of my one-on-one conversations I've had with some of my production managers as well. It's very, very open and trustworthy in those conversations that we have, and and feedback said constructively, not in the point where it's attacking or it's just wishy-washy. It's constructive feedback and understanding we need to look at how we get better, but it's not just they're taking the journey on their own too. I'm here side by side with you, help, supporting you, guiding you, and that's what I like in that leadership role, is being able to do that.
Yeah, Thomas is more moving. Yes, we have targets. Yes, we have KPIs, but the conversation is moving more, not how, but it's more moving for what purpose, what happened. Yeah. Tell me the story, tell me the process of what we did actually. And you have actually conversation about that, and not just saying like, oh, why we didn't achieve it. We should achieve it next month, and we need to move faster. And it's not that just pressure and directorship, but it's actually having conversation. Okay, let's see who we need to in the team. Maybe they can help us, right? Or what we are missing. What is the skill? That means when you go through critical alignment model, that's the funny thing about that, right? Like you ask why, for what purpose, what values we were demonstrating, how we will, like what was our attitude and behavior. And I think that's the part that you're really big on. Like you really like to see people. First of all, behavior, like accountability, responsibility, that I know they are really strong values for you. And I think that is the major part, to see actually where the project or where the KPIs, fall apart, because it's actually about our attitude most of the time.
I learned, obviously I've got a young daughter, and the why question comes up a lot, and it's something that she's taught me to, everything is why, but why this, but why that? And,
I love it.
And it, you can't just use like the one liner just to sort of brush them off, because I would say then the next question is, but why? So you keep getting this repetitive why, and it's interesting, because when you start applying that into your everyday life, you actually start to really get down to the root cause of where some of these problems are. And and my daughter's only 3 years old, so I tell you right now, she keeps me on my toes in that regard, and I just like do something, but why are you doing that? And I'm like, I can't answer that right now. And I'm like, you put me on the spot. And I try and give her an answer, but why? And like I said, I apply that in my everyday life when I'm approaching a problem or a task. It's like, well, why did that happen? And I put myself in my daughter's shoes, and I can tell you right now, it might sound weird to some of the listeners on here, but life is simple as a child in that state, because again, you don't know everything. So you're asking those questions why, because you're trying to understand, you're trying to get a better understanding and knowledge and gather every information you can from around you. So it's interesting dynamic and an interesting way to look at it. But I can tell you right now, becoming a father and have to deal with that day in, day out definitely has changed me a fair bit in how I approach certain aspects of my life.
I think we can definitely learn from kids.
Yeah.
There is, when we talk about, how we communicate with other people, that's exactly space or place we should come from. Like, we should come from curiosity, right? And not knowing.
Yeah.
Because what we do in conversations, we try to pretend we know. That means we kind of guessing, assuming, and therefore the conversation going wrong way. And that's how we do talk to people. And kids don't have it, right? Like, they don't assume, they ask you. It's like, tell me why, tell me how. And there's and that's why there's such a honest, trustworthy conversation, because it's just so raw.
Yeah.
And we forget, I think we forget to have these raw conversations. And I miss that so much, because everything is so, almost it feels is shallow. It's almost like, you can't say that, you can't say that, you can say that. Everything has to be politically correct. I understand that, but there's so many more rules, right? And now you talk male, female, right? And now every man is like, I need to be careful what I say, because if I say that, I will be sounding like, I want something more. It's like, what can I actually do? Now, guys talk usually about, I can't invite a woman in bar for drink, because they started to be angry. They started to be annoyed that I think about her, she can't buy her drink, or like, it's opposite, right? Like, we still need gentlemen. And I think that childhood, that was like, we were growing like that, right? Like, we were good-hearted, kind people, and we had that all inside. And now everything is shaping us, like which way we should go. And I think that's causing a lot of challenges in leadership in general, because everybody's scared and everybody's basically coming to work already kind of worried.
I think it comes back to that environment state part. You know what I mean? Like, the environment, if it's a safe place to come to work with, people won't be worried. You know what I mean? Like, they feel they're accepted regardless of who, or, I don't want to sound impolitically correct here, but
just do a little bit here.
Yeah,
okay.
but do you know what I mean? Like, if you come to a workplace where you feel safe that you can be yourself, then you shouldn't have to feel worried. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And that is definitely probably the fundamental part of it. Like, it doesn't matter what you do on the weekend or what you do. You know what I mean? When you're at work, you're at work. You're here with your teammates. You're here with your team members. We're here to work towards a common outcome or goal, and we just get on with it. You know what I mean? And I think that's where it comes down to. If we can set that environment where people feel safe, people feel welcomed, people feel accepted, all of what what you just mentioned, sort of just disappears. It doesn't become
it's natural.
Yeah, it becomes natural. It's not it's not a point of a conversation or a topic that that needs to be addressed and picked up and continually sprayed around. You know what I mean? Like,
I love it.
Just make it feel natural. We just get on with it. You know what I mean? We're here to work. We're here to work as a team, and like I said, work towards an outcome, towards a goal. So I think that environment part is a critical part with any team and with any business that you could look at. It's take a step back and look at that environment. What are you portraying for that environment, and what are your team members portraying in that environment space? And does your understanding of the environment align with the team that's out on the shop floor or in the office space that you occupy in? If it's not, then have conversations. What could we do better? What do we need to change? To change, and again, it comes to those honest conversations. And people won't be honest with you if they don't trust you.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because I have a lot of experiences that some companies that we work with, when I come in, they're like, oh, we are friends. We are almost like a family. And everything sounds so great. But after that, when I talk to individuals, I realize that they don't say things, they don't give feedback, they don't address concerns. And I probably would like to ask, because I found it as a real problem, because the leader thinks something, but the team is different than they think. That means having the team and thinking that we are family, they address the problems, they give us feedback, they really care, and they're happy. And now when you go to team and you realize that actually they are scared, then how do you think, how you deal with it? How you recognize that?
I think it's from my standpoint, like in previous businesses I've worked in, And again, I've worked at only 4 or 5 companies in my time, my career.
That's enough.
It's enough probably to the point where I'm at. But again, I'm just reflecting over over those businesses and where I've worked in. And you talk about feedback, and some were receptive to the feedback that you were given, and some weren't. And again, I'm not out to name names or anything like that, but it's just the way that I think businesses are shaped. Like we are in moving from the industrial age now into that sort of real information age. So like technology is rapidly expanding, literally month on month. So what we have today in knowing technology, in a month's time it's redundant and because someone else replaces it. But that information age, it's also not just technology looking at, it's also communication in that respect, and also people as well. So like that is a big fundamental part where everybody, it was just like you do the 9 till 5, and that's gone nowadays. You know what I mean? Like people are working 9-day fortnights, they're working from home, they have flexible working hours. They're now talking, I've seen on the news last night, they're talking about schools going to flexible hours as well. And the whole shift of how we work, how we manage is completely going the other way. But some of the ways that we're probably still taught in those, those project management or, those leadership management ones, it's all set in that industrial age, and they're not setting us up. They're not setting up for the shift and setting businesses up for success moving forward. And, and again, I'm reflecting over the time of my career and where I've, worked with management or been in management. I look at it and I go like, we're not preparing ourselves for that shift. And unfortunately, some businesses, and again, not speaking of for every business, some probably are doing really actively work in that space and some aren't, but we need to probably have a look at that part of that process as well, and look at that as well as for the environment side of things. Are we setting our teams up for success moving into this new era? Are we being proactive in our approach to our future leaders, setting our team up with business upskilling plans? It's just all these little bits and pieces, they all add up to the end of it, and they will help a business drive in that positive direction. And it's then you won't be the one probably looking for people. People will start looking to come and work for you too, and that will change the status quo, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have opinion about that, but I will ask you probably a little bit more, because everything what you say, I absolutely agree. We are not education is not going fast enough. It's not improving and evolving fast enough when we compare what is happening actually in real world and how technology is growing us basically and outgrowing us, I would say. I'm curious, what do you think is that one or few things that, let's say 1 or 2, 3 things that you feel like we really need to change to be able to manage people from those, hybrid places and, allow people to work from home? Like what is the major kind of cornerstone or foundation that we need to build up?
I'm going to come back to my favorite words, trust. Some businesses I've worked for, and I've had it in my previous business. I was a manager that, some of my team members needed to work from home. And COVID showed us opened the door really to everyone to working from home. And I think some people are probably still thinking from a place of fear where like, that person's working from home, I can't keep an eye on them. Are they meeting their work? Are they actually at work? Are they not setting up on the computer and then they're out shopping or doing things like that? But again, it's about understanding the people that you have working for you. Like when you hired them for a reason, and then something changed, and then now like you don't trust them, you don't do. There's something not clicking. So then,
what is the skill then? What do you think? Like, because we need to change something, right? Like, trust. The trust is the let's say foundation, but have you what is missing that people are not able to trust? What do you think is what skills need to be developed or what needs to be changed? Because that's big and so true that we need trust.
Yeah, I think the big skill I think is just connecting with people, being able to communicate. Communication, openly being able to have that conversation with those people and individuals or team members, whoever they are, and then openly, hey, next week, team, we're looking at potentially moving 2 people to work from home, and the following week, the other 2 team members are working from home. We're going to trial this and see how it goes. So again, you give them the opportunity to actually take that fundamental step rather than it being, you have to ask for it. Do you know what I mean? You're being proactive in the approach rather than being reactive, because reactive, they're asking you, I'd like to work from home. And then you're like, no, But being proactive and having that conversation, oh, look, I'd like to work from home. Can we look at options? All right, let's look at this. Let's trial it. Let's see if, 2 weeks, team A, you're going to be working from home. Team B, you're in the office. The following week, you swap. You know what I mean? And again, you just trial it. You trial it, you measure it, and like what's not measured, can't report on. So or can't be measured. So if you look at it from that perspective, again, that's to the trust. Trial it. Talk to your team members, see what they're actually looking for. If you can start getting a little bit personal about it and looking at that from perspective, again, it starts opening more doors. And again, that foundation of trust starts to start not just reflective from you with that individual, but also between your team as well. Because if someone's working from home, someone's working from the office, there could be a handover, work needs to be done. Has that person been living up to their expectations? But it shouldn't be the manager holding that individual to the expectation. It should be the team members as well, because again, if they don't do their part while they're in the office or they're working from home, it all falls apart. Yeah,
that means I will probably say something, because everything what you described to me is actually leadership skill.
Yeah,
and I love what you said, because I absolutely agree, and this is exactly what wasn't happening in industrial age, right? We were a dictatorship. It was. I'm not saying that was nasty. It was some part of that, right? But I found a lot of people still talking to their employees, or leaders talking to their team members the way that it's funny. It's like this small detail, like instead of asking, hey, what do you think this is the project? What do you think we should do? And they still kind of come back to that, like, hey, we should do this. That means we almost don't see those small nuances in language, and we still drive that old leadership through this kind of nastiness in communication, and we don't realize that we actually telling people what to do instead of asking them what they think is the best, for the project, for the company, what we should do. And with trust as well, I like a lot of research when you're going to check now research after 2 years, 3 years, working remotely and people working from home. There's only so much proof of that people are more productive because they can now work even less. That means they don't work 8 hours, they work 5 hours, and they can, between that, they can, clean the house, do stuff around, they can go for a run, they can do sport. That means actually those breaks and that comfort they can have, it's actually helping them to be productive and more focused. Yeah. As I found that, I think it's absolutely amazing. And instead of, people still don't trust and they're scared, and the person in the office is actually less productive, because when you are not going around, they're like, oh my God, let's check Facebook, or let's check something. That is it. On the other side, if you are overwhelmed and you are still in the same environment, you can't have break. That brain just can't work non-stop for 8 hours, right? It just doesn't work.
I agree with you too. And obviously during COVID, the business I was working for, I was working from home, but sometimes there's also a con side to that as well. Like sometimes you don't know when to switch off. Sometimes if you sit at a computer and look at the time, it's like, well, it's 6 o'clock in the evening.
That's important.
But I think like setting healthy boundaries as well, like understanding, between and having that conversation with your team members as well as a leader, saying like, all right, what time are you going to log on? I'm going to log on at 7 o'clock to 8:30 because I've got to drop my kids off at school from 8:30 to 9 o'clock or 9:30. Yep, no worries. I know for an hour, that period of an hour, you're not going to be at work. That's fine. Or at your desk at home.
Yeah.
No worries. But you'll tack that hour and like, oh, I need to pick the kids up from 3 o'clock till 4 o'clock, so I'm not there. So there's my 2 hours there. But I'm going to do from 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock. I'm working at home. So again, if you make those have those open conversations at the start and you set the boundaries, I think again it helps sets that environment up of where you can trust in people working. And again, it is that trust factor. And when trust is broken, that's when all those questions and things don't start quite working. Doubt, stress, and I think again that's where it all comes really down to. I think like it's that it's those foundations of leadership that I think need to be probably reconfigured from the industrial age and really looking at how we approach it moving forward.
Yeah, and that's what is very interesting when I see the leadership schools, because I was like checking, what is doing what and what are the programs, and there's still a lot about, of course, their values. That's it. That's, the end of that, I guess, values, vision. But how to implement it in the processes is very much missing a lot of time, and how that is kind of implemented in the communication and building the trust and starting to have these different relationships with people, and how to actually support people that is missing, how to actually support your people from maybe that psycho perspective, like mental perspective, or physical perspective, like understanding personalities, like you went through, understanding all different personalities, right? How that is helpful. And we can have these conversations every day. Like when someone is C energy and talking to you, it's totally different when you talk to, D energy or I energies. It's very different. And we still don't bring that, or we are not bringing that every day into leadership. And we are not changing how we communicate to people and with people, and how we help other people to manage their time and their energy. And I think a lot becomes about energy, because we are in stress. We have all low energies and exhausted and tired and stressed.
I can definitely talk to that one. Like obviously, like when everything coming together, I put a lot of stress on myself because I wasn't separating what was essential and non-essential tasks. So like the glass was full with both of those tasks, and I was really struggling there at a point where I was just like, and I'm looking at my work schedule, looking at my calendar, and I'm going like, when do I actually get time to actually focus on work that I actually, that's going to add value to what I'm doing within the business. And and then I had to have a bit of a hard conversation with myself internally to say, look, hang on.
I like that what you just said.
Yeah, don't worry. No, I've done some soul searching in that regard, and it was like looking at it and going like, okay, is that meeting? Do I need to be at that meeting? Like, can I delegate that to my production manager to attend that meeting? And then again, you had that conversation. Like, oh, I can't attend this meeting. Can you attend on my behalf?
Yeah.
And they look at you and they go like, are you serious? And I'm like, yeah, go. And, attend that meeting. You do that, and you don't realize that by you just doing that, that gives them opportunity for grow as well, because now they've been put into an atmosphere or into a place that they would never ever probably, or they eventually
think
might,
about that.
but they might eventually get there further down their career, but they're not actually exposed to it right there and then. So now you're putting them in the hot seat where they've got to learn to understand and listen to what's going on in the room, and it's giving them the base essential skills to setting them up for success moving forward.
Yeah,
and a couple of those
opportunities.
Opportunities, and that's a couple of opportunities I've done that with a couple of my team members as well.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, I don't know if I should be in this meeting." I'm like, "Why not?" And then I was like, "Oh, I don't feel comfortable." And I'm like, "Well," and like you and I have said, and when you feel in that place of discomfort, that's when you're learning something.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I think if you provide those opportunities for your team members too, that gives them the reason why they want to stay, they want to leave, and it's just I think, like I said, all these little bits all add up to a successful team, successful environment, and just everyone just gets along and gets on with it. Yes, we know we got KPIs in the back of everyone's ones, but like if people are looked after correctly, the environment's right, the KPIs will just happen naturally. They're not forced.
That is something very important you just said. It's so important. And as I always said, it starts with leader, right? When you are okay as a leader, like you do it, right? Like you try to bring more opportunities, you try to delegate, and people are now learning they can delegate. Actually there is an opportunity to delegate and look at the task itself. Like, do I need to do it? Can someone help me? Can someone else to do it? Or how we can best actually manage our time in general in the team. That means every action, everything what you do is showing people this is something you can do.
Yeah.
And I think that's the massive step in leadership that needs to happen. And it's not just telling people what to do, but really look at them as a human beings and being kind and realize that we all have emotions, we all have energy, we all exchanging that and transmitting that, every day when we are together. And yes, I have maybe bad day, but if I will bring that bad day into my team, I will create bad day for someone else. Do I want to do it, or do I want to create better memories and I want people to like the place, and feeling good in the work environment? It's so easy to get to our old lazy, and like I say, today I don't need to do it. Today I don't need to make my bed, right? Yeah. It's so easy to do that. Yeah. But as a leader, like I know we can make mistakes, but that accountability and personal responsibility, I think when you understand that actually they're watching me if I'm making bad today. That means that responsibility of teaching people always do it because this is the standard, this is who we can become, or I will just show them today. I don't feel it. I'm not going to do it, right?
Yeah, well, again, I have to go back to like when you like young children, they watching everything that you do.
They're sponges.
So exactly right. So like if you're like if you don't set your bed and make your bed every morning, and they don't see you doing that, so that's meaning that's accepted. Do you know what I mean? Like
exactly. That's normal.
That is normal. That standard is accepted. So then when they get old, they're like, I'm not making my bed because you don't make your bed. Do you know what I mean? And that's
absolutely.
That's the type of thing that starts going on. And don't worry, like in my new role that I'm in now, like I've made some mistakes and I've openly said that. And again, acknowledge exactly right. That is okay. And don't worry, when like I've had to learn to accept that, because prior to that, I didn't accept my failure. Like I was like, no,
you didn't like it.
I didn't like it. I definitely did not like it. And that's from my upbringing as well. Like, I've come from a background where, like, I've come from a family where aircraft engineers, so there's no second chance in that
mistakes.
space.
Yeah, please don't make mistakes.
Exactly right. Don't make mistakes. You know what I mean? And you can't make mistakes. And you know, that's how I've sort of approached things in life.
Yeah.
But that expectation I've put on myself, it wasn't healthy for myself as well. And you know, and I've still got traits of that perfectionism where, you know, that it's right first time. It's right first time. There's no second chance. And, you know, and then when I have done that and I've looked at it and gone, like, it didn't work out, like I've openly admitted, like, hey guys, I made a mistake.
Yeah.
And
that's human.
But again, it comes down, that's human, you know, and I've had to learn that over the last 3 to 4 months because, you know, I've tried something, and I thought, yeah, look, this is a sure winner here. Look, this is going to come off perfect. You know, everything's good. And it didn't happen. And then I look at it and going like, and I start going like, oh man, like I failed. But then I reflected and going like, hang on, let's go to my daughter and put my daughter, why did it fail? And I start asking those types of questions.
Yeah.
So then I now know, okay, look, I'm not going to do this or do that next time because that was the result I got. So let's just change it and tweak it. Let's try it again. And I think that's the other part too of leadership, which people probably aren't. It's not taught. It's like it's okay to fail.
That's perception, yeah.
It's perception again. It's okay to fail because that's the part where you're going to learn. Yeah. And yeah, again, it's perception from, you know, it could be your boss or, you know, other managers or whoever it might be, workers that you work for, that you made a decision that didn't work off, and then they look at you and you're thinking that they're looking at you going like, oh, like, I don't want to work for him. He doesn't know what he's doing, you know what I mean? But I think if you openly communicate to him like, hey, look, team, I made this decision. It didn't come off the way I thought it was. So, you know, I'm accountable for that. So I own that. Yeah. But like I said, no fault to yourselves. Like I said, this is what this is a lesson learned from it. And then I'm not going to do this one again, and we're going to approach it with this from this angle. Yeah. And yeah, I've had to do that a couple of times in the last couple of months. And I've had to sometimes I put my foot in my mouth in regards to into some of these, but again, it's just an opportunity to learn. It's opportunity. It's how we as humans learn to understand. Yeah. And again, it's like, to go back to my daughter, it's about looking at, you know, trialing something, it didn't work, but then you sit there and not give up and look at it and go, okay, look, I'm going to have another attempt at this, but I'm going to take it from this angle rather than the angle I applied at. Yeah,
it's interesting because what you say is. I think it's very important for environment when we talk about that critical alignment model, for example, right? There is this element of creating standard that we can innovate and try and bring ideas in. I think it's more important, you know, even if you fail or someone else fail, because you bringing that standard, like this is what we want in a company. We want innovators. We want people to be proactive. But when someone fails and you punish them straight away, you're creating different standard, and environment is already broken, right? Because people will be scared. People don't want to bring ideas. People don't want to try new things. That means as a standard, like from leadership, I think that's most important, especially now in digital age, right? Like we have so many things growing so fast, changing so fast. And being in that environment so rigid, you know, and don't allow people to bring ideas, because there's so many more smarter people in the room. In my team, I will never do like or make decisions for them. Like they're so great. It will be sad, right? Like if you don't let them to show you what is in them, what they love, what their passion is, and bring that on, it will be so boxing them, you know, in something.
Well, it's like everyone now, you see it on the news at the moment, everyone's struggling to find people, you know what I mean? Like, and it's people to fill positions. Like it's so challenging. And you know, we had in our group chat, you know, like how you know, what are you doing in recruiting? And we're asking different business leaders within that group, you know, like How do you approach it, or how is your company approaching it? I was talking to an old mentor of mine on I think it was Tuesday this week actually, and we're talking about that, and it was interesting because kids these days, and I'm talking like, you know, the 18, 19-year-olds, they don't want to go into these hard labour jobs.
No.
And like, you know, I heard the term the other day, and again, it's not my term. The TikTok generation is what they call them. But, you know, the information that they have that's available on their phone and how they're using that, you know, they're getting into digital marketing, they're promoting businesses, but they can do that all over the world. They're not fixated to working in a workshop, working in an office, you know what I mean, doing spreadsheets, doing this. They're free to do what they want, and they're doing what they love. And that's the point where I look at it and go, like, if that's the next generation that's coming through, then what happens to industry where we're in at the moment? Because those individuals, well, they're the next sort of generation coming through. So businesses now need to probably look at, again, how do you approach that, and then making your business inviting for them to come and work for you. So do you offer those working from home situations, flexible hours? You know, are you able to do work from anywhere in the world type of scenario? Like, probably not for Australia because we're such a big country, but you know what I mean? Like, they could be working for you, your business might be in Perth, but they could be working in, you know, in Karratha or something like that, or working in Victoria, working for you in Perth. Yeah. And there could be an opportunity there. And I think that's where, as businesses, as leaders, as managers of people, we need to look at how do we start recruiting people into our business, and then by providing that environment, that structure, and variety, and variety of work, because I feel that's the next biggest challenge. Well, we're already in that challenge now as the building industry is seeing it, but there's going to be further industries that are going to be impacted by that because they're not inviting enough. They don't want to work in those businesses, which is interesting to see because. And it was a good conversation I had with her the other day about it. And it was about, and then I started reading, as I love to do, about it. And it's very apparent in a lot of industries where the next people that they would be, you know, recruiting into them, they can't find those people anymore.
It is definitely, there has to be an approach that will emotionally attract people, because we don't want to just go for work and this is the job description. And we talk about that a lot. And I wouldn't be going as well. About my job, when I'm thinking about like last 20 years, I had one job that was really great, right? But how I found it was that they said I will be only 25% in the office. And that was like 15, 16 years ago, right? I'm thinking that time already, I didn't want to be stuck in office, and there was not, you know, technology was not that great yet. Like this AI, you know, everything what is coming up now. Like, I think that's another part, you know, like, businesses will need to probably look at more on automations and AI, and sadly, you know, they will need to replace some humans, but it's actually for good thing, because now human beings can actually move towards different careers. And I think people get really scared, you know, like, oh, we will never have this job anymore. But it's not about that. It's about moving forward and having more and more opportunities.
I 100% agree with you there, Alex. It's and it's not. People are looking at AI going, oh, this is scary. And I said, it's scary because we don't know. That again, we're moving to that world of uncertainty because we don't know where it's going to go. Now, yes, some, you know, like I know you look at car manufacturing across the world, you know what I mean? Like you look, Detroit in America, big example. Ford was, you know, GMC, they moved, they had that massive plant there. It's gone. Detroit, the city is no longer probably as great as it used to be, right? Because the car industry moved out of there because everything went to automation. You know, the Ford factory in Geelong closed. You know, it's all moved because everything was moving to this automation side of things. Yes, it does create, like obviously it makes jobs no longer there, but it gives opportunity to, those machines still need to be maintained. They still need to be programmed.
There'll be different skills.
There's different skills. So the opportunity is there to upskill team members and provide further opportunities for them to be able to not just yes, that unit's replacing what I used to do, but it needs to be programmed, it needs to be maintained. You're now the fundamental part of that process, because if that machine breaks down, that car line breaks down. So, and it comes down to AI as well. You know, like, you know, I know businesses are using them for dot control and for different aspects throughout the business. And don't get me wrong, yes, it's helping those businesses step forward. But again, it's about retraining and repurposing.
You need to know how to use it.
Yeah, correct.
It's still AI. It's still not human being, right? We need to know how to actually use that.
And it's not taught in schools here in Australia. I don't understand how that computer science thing. It maybe is. Again, I don't know the education system as well as I do. But, you know, you look at educational systems around the world, like I know China from the age of 7 or something, like they're coding. You know, we learn how to code now. And like
my nephews started to code. And I was like, wow, okay, like where we are at.
Yeah, and like my nephew's, he does computer science and etc. He's 10 years old, 10 years old, and I look at it too, and I'm like, I wish I could have done that when I was that age. You know, like they're probably working on stuff now that, you know, their job probably won't be actually in place by the time they actually go to finish school anyway. Absolutely. So again, there's opportunity then for they can actually choose where they want to go as well. So yeah, I think like you said, we're moving from the industrial to digital age, and the rest of the world Australia needs to catch up pretty quick.
Yeah. And I love that. Look, I think every change is bringing something new and exciting and opportunities to grow and change. And I think more we do that, more than likely we will also live longer, because our brains stay, you know, like really, really trained, because we need to relearn. We need to change what we know by now. And there was another thing that you said that really prompted me to think that leadership is again leadership requires, or leaders requires, really to retrain how they lead people, because you need to be real forward thinker. You need to understand actually how to help your people to develop better, and, you know, having a chance to stay in that business and help the business the right way. And I think we don't have enough that leadership skill as well, just to notice what are actually people's strengths, how we can help them, and what actually they can learn. Because it doesn't mean that you come to company, you have this education. That's, again, recruitment system should change 1,000,000%. Everyone listening to me, please change all recruiting system, please. Because when you think about it, it doesn't matter who you are in the school right now. Like your background is not any more important, because you need to retrain your people, and every company is using different systems, different softwares, different platforms. It's so much retraining. When I was in that last job, right, like when I was there, I had my training, and I don't know how they call it, I forgot, but it was this training and onboarding. It took 6 months just learning all platforms. That was the time, and I struggle to understand after 6 months, because there were so many moving pieces around, and I was like, wow, I'm just coaching people. Why I need to do all this? But you feel
overwhelmed by it too, because 6 months that's a solid, obviously, aspect to try and understand and take in the information to process.
I can't believe it, actually. That was so much.
But I agree with that too. The onboarding process too for some businesses, and again, because I love finding little snippets around, you know, articles that talk about onboarding, and, you know, you need to do it in stages. So, you know, like look at the roles that you're recruiting for, and when you get the people on board, you know, what's the onboarding process? What do they need to know first up? Then give it a couple of months, then go, look, okay, they've learned, they should understand these parts. Then the second part is this, you know what I mean? Do it in stages, get them on board. Again, some businesses can't afford probably to prolong that process, but if you're trying to put too much information into a person's head as well as them trying to do their job at the same time, they're not going to be able to be fulfilling.
We don't need to talk about onboarding, right? When he said that actually takes time, that's learning. That's great. Learning and development. It doesn't need to be onboarding, even though it's part of onboarding. That means, guys, you should have some learning and development in the business for people anyway, right?
Yeah, I agree, 100% agree too. And it's and it shouldn't be just let them sit in front of a computer and watch a couple of videos or a questionnaire type thing. Do you know what I mean? And I've done plenty of those.
Click yes or no.
Yeah. I've done plenty of those inductions as you go to do into the mining industry and that, and you have to do these questionnaires and stuff. But I think if you can do it with the people, I think again too, especially if it's the manager that you're actually reporting to or working for, that's actually taking you for a one-on-one through a particular system, that can add so much value to that individual onboarding, because it shows that you care. It shows that you actually want them there. You know, I've hired you for the role, but I'm actually going to show you the ins and outs of your job and how you got to do it. And then it gives them the opportunity to ask questions live rather than noted down, and I have to come back to you and ask you those. And
It's so much better.
Yeah,
That's such a good idea.
it is.
Yeah.
It's something that I think, you know, we can definitely learn and start progressing that moving forward, I think.
Yeah. I love that because when you think about people coming in a work environment, they really spend a lot of time on computer without creating relationships and really being with people, observing and learning from other people. And I think that's that shared knowledge. You know, it's not really spread through the company with people or around or between people. What is, I think, more important than just sit on a questionnaire and go through scenarios and answer yes or no and say, you know what, now I actually have safe training. Like, come on, like it's just not enough. And people do this with emotional intelligence or they do it with some leadership skills or managerial skills. They tell you how to manage your time, but they don't consider your personality. They don't consider what you like, who you are. It doesn't. This is the part I believe it's really long time wouldn't be able to be replaced with AI. Even there are trials. I saw so many of them, but it's poor because, you know, computer is great. Yeah. We're learning to create data, learn, and we have computer of a brain, right? Like we get so much. But if you ask computer, what is love? Show me love?
It can't articulate it. And I think, I can't remember which company it was, but there was a company in Europe just actually employed a first AI CEO. So It actually is a robot. And it is completely, and it's like processing information. So it's making decisions. It's based on logical, yeah, but not with a, you know, empathetic or emotional point of view. So again, I've only seen a little bit of a snippet or a video, 30-second video of it. But if that's the way the world is going, where we're just going to be processing ones and zeros and not worrying about people, then what's the point?
Exactly. That's what is really scary.
Yeah.
Because I think connections we can't replace. We can't. I feel really good when I'm communicating with my AI because she called me Alex, and I really enjoyed because I kind of like created a little bit of how you said it. I set it up basically to speak with me.
But don't get me wrong. Like when it's set up and it's working, you know, you've got it tailored to what you want, how you want to operate, and how you operate. Yeah. It's phenomenal. Like don't get me wrong. Like my phone, I've got all these different modes set up on it and things to do. So like I walk into a certain building and it actually changes the actual mode and the system, how it operates. Do you know what I mean? And you know, it's good that it does that because again, it's just something that I don't have to think about. It does it. But when you're using it to aid your work, it works. But when it starts probably taking control and then it starts replacing key positions within businesses where you need that personal connection with people, then that starts to scare me.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate the trials like that. Okay, you know, it's something that is different and it's new. I love those kind of innovations, but I would love that only as a probably trial and not like a real situation yet. And I'm not sure when I will be able to trust something like that, even though, you know, it's giving me a lot of different information, what is great, but I can see how it's still shallow and is only giving you what it knows. It doesn't give you, like we have life experience, right? Like AI will never ever experience life itself.
It only can research.
Exactly.
What's happened in the past. Yeah, it's good. It can do that, but it's not going to apply let's just say an emotion to that history either. So like, you know, everyone has history. You know, there's people been through different scenarios in their lives. Yeah. But like people had that emotional connection to that particular moment in life. AI can read about it, but it's not going to actually being able to probably apply like how did that person feel in that scenario or that situation. Or, you know, in that, and I think that's the bit where, you know, emotional intelligence is a big one, and it is understanding people's emotions in that point at time, situation. You know, and it's again something I've had to learn along my career is probably accepting that more in other people as well. It's not just black and white. There's definitely many shades of grey. Yeah, and again, you learn from how you've applied things in your life, and you understand it a bit more.
Yeah, and I'm like big fan of psycho-spiritual place, right, as well, like how we actually grow with the business, how we grow as an individual, how we evolve as a leader. And I think that psycho-spiritual part is really, really huge because we all have emotions and we all have reflections, especially when we work together. Like we always talk about reflection and having self-awareness and awareness because those are bringing that conscious living, being conscious, being in present moment, seeing things around and really understand this is perfect moment, and future doesn't exist basically. That is bringing people in that, evolution and start to connect with themselves. I don't think that can be replaced because that human experience, I think that's what we actually have and what we should live for, because that's the only thing that is ours, unique. Each individual has that inner world, and we can decide that we will live it in fears, and we'll be disturbed inside, or we'll start to learn how to actually manage ourselves for real, right? Like deeply. And I think that's when I always say, like, I'm not worried, because that path can't be replaced with anything in the world. And I think that's the path that we all should actually take, because being conscious in leadership role, being conscious and aware, and being present with your people, it's probably most important skill to me in leadership. But I will ask you before, because we just went to AI and it was really, really nice. I think we can just talk about it, because I remember you shared some stuff, and I started to use some like a video AI applications and stuff. It was all really cool, and I started to really enjoy it. But from perspective back to you and back to leadership, back to your experience, I would love to see when you can think about challenges, and also, or maybe particular situation that was challenging with your people, for example, or with yourself. Maybe that was a situation with one person, maybe with a team, or maybe something within you or personal. Then what was the challenge, and how did you navigate it? Or how did you overcome it? Or how did you, I guess, come on the other side?
I've had plenty of those across my career, but I probably can't pick one off in particular that probably resonates, but I could probably pick a collective of how, it's probably not a common occurrence, but I've faced it in different businesses as well. And I think it's that getting to know your team and how they operate and how they work. I've seen managers that I've worked for in the past where they've come in new into the business, and then they've tried to change everything, like how they see things and how they do things. They're like, no, that's not right. But that's their perception of how things should be done. But again, it's really not getting in tune with what is already currently being done. And that, unfortunately, that approach creates resistance. So you already start, like, as a new manager coming into a business and saying, like, that process you're doing is wrong. You're already putting the team already on the wrong foot. Yeah. And I'm guilty of it. I've done it once, and I've learned from it. And I've had to apologise to the team. Say, hey, look, sorry, team, I was wrong. I didn't listen to the feedback or your concerns around it. I just initiated it, and now look where we're at, and I take full accountability and responsibility of that. And I think that was probably one of my biggest challenges, and I think it's a challenge of any new manager or any leader, especially. And I'm not just talking about management, I'm talking about supervisors, leading hand. If you're in charge of a team, look how your team operates, get to know your people that are in your team, and look at the processes that they're currently doing, because they wouldn't be doing those processes if they didn't feel that it was right. Now, don't get wrong, there's probably definitely ways that we can tune that to make it more efficient, more user-friendly. It could be documented, etc. But again, don't try and go in like a bull in a china shop and change everything, because people are receptive to change, and we all are. We don't like change. We're resistant to it. Yep. And that's definitely something I've learnt in my career, is not going in and just changing everything from the get-go. Observe, look at what's going on, ask questions, have one-on-ones, have conversations with the team. Let's see, hey, look, this process, is it working? Yes? Okay. Well, what can we do to make it better? Yep. And it's not just, like that process is rubbish, let's completely change it up. No, it is working, but we need, how can we refine it? And then you're asking those prompting questions, they'll start looking at the process going, actually, no, look, we're picking parts from over in A and we're walking over to B to do that work. We should bring the parts over to B, so then we're only walking 2 minutes rather than 10 minutes. Do you know what I mean? And when you start in manufacturing, from my background, I've been in the last 9 years, that 10 minutes, especially if you're making 129 units, it starts adding up pretty quickly. And it's about how do you make it more efficient. And sometimes the team don't even notice it, because it's become accepted. It's the norm.
Yeah.
And again, it's just, again, perspective thinking, looking at the process.
Awareness.
Yeah, being aware of what the process is and looking how you can change it. So.
Yeah. I love that because what you actually said, it was so common and I saw it so many times. And I think that need of create a change or change something when you're coming to the new team, it's almost driven by insecurity and need to show that I can do this better. I can show you these are better systems. And it's coming from that fear, I think, to maybe fear of, not succeed or as a leader, being respected because you think when you bring some ideas, you will be.
If I was put it in a nutshell, Alex, I think it's because if you're hired to do a particular, you've been hired into a role.
Yeah.
You're trying to show a perception of that you know what you're doing.
Exactly.
You're proving yourself.
Yeah. Yes, that's good.
You know
that's
what
good
I mean?
word.
That is, it's you proving yourself. You're proving to management or whoever the hiring manager was that they've hired and made the right decision by hiring you into the business.
Yeah.
But if they're not seeing change within the first 2 or 3 months, then they start questioning, going like, well, why did they employ you? You know, but again, that's your own self perception too.
Absolutely.
Making that I'd say, what's the word I'm looking for? Making that evaluation. And then when you then starts to click into place and starts falling into places, everything starts coming, and settling down, and that's where that environment then comes in as a vital part because the environment is settled.
I love that. That means it's almost like, you want to prove yourself. Still, it's coming from fear a little bit, right? Like you want to prove that you are good for the job, and it's funny because that you miss that part that is most important. What you did now in your company, right? Relationships and connections. Because when you build up that first, company probably or managers don't see really a lot of changes because you're building up relationships. I think that's absolutely most important part to get to know your people first. And yes, maybe that first month, they don't see a lot of changes, but you already have trust, and that's more powerful to do anything afterwards, when just some people just walk in and it's like, I can see that mistake, that's wrong, and let's change it. Because it's so easy to criticize without knowing the big picture or being involved in the company. That's why I don't like when people call me and it's like, oh, just come and help us with this. But I said, I need to know who you need help with because, what is the core of the, problem or issue. I can't just walk in and tell you like, okay, I will do this. It doesn't need to work for you.
Yeah, I'm dubbed the observer, so I observe a lot, and that's obviously part of that C energy. I like to observe what's going on, and I like to gather information before I make an assessment or make an action. And that's me. I know that to a T, and I observe and I look and I watch, and people see that and they're like, "What are you looking at?" And then I'm saying and I'll explain it to them, and they go, "I'd never actually seen it like that." Yeah. But again, they're seeing it.
It's different way of seeing it.
Different because they're seeing it through your eyes.
Yeah.
And then when they look at it and go, look, actually, we need to make a change here. But see, the thing is that I'm not the one making the change. Yeah. So I flipped it. So it's like I'm asking the question. They've seen the change. They make the change. They are empowered. Then, they think, well, they get that endorphin going, beautiful. Oh, look, I've done this. I've done good here. And then what else can I change? So then that ball then starts to roll, and then you watch. Then one person does it, then that one becomes two becomes four, and it will start magnifying within your teams. And I've been doing a bit of work with a couple of apprentices that are in my team at the moment, and we're starting that conversation around how long have you been in this job for? And it's like, I've been doing this particular task for 12 days, and I said, okay, what have you learnt in this 12 days? And then they're like, I've learned to do this. It says, how can we? But okay, now my question is, if you had to make one choice, right, and to improve what you're doing right now, what would it be? And they're like, and then they came in and says, okay, no worries. I says, make the change. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, it's no cost to the business, it's adding value, so do it. You know what I mean? And they've done it. They clean the area up. They set the area up as where the parts need to be allocated, so they're not walking all over the workshop. They started demarcating areas off where they need to, where stuff's set. So again, setting things in the organisation. It's good that I've got young people that are making those decisions, but they've actually seen it from a conversation that we've had, and then they make the change themselves.
That's really empowering, and I love that because young people, when someone give them trust and tell them, do it. You can do it. This is a great idea. it's really empowering them on the journey of their growth and, you know, becoming something more. Because we have so many bad leaders, right? And they sadly put us down, you know, in the past. And sometimes it's just we take it with us, and we change the personality because of that. And I think that's no point is that you don't need to be a leader in position, but you are a leader in your team. That means even within your team, you can always be that leader that will set up the standards, set up the boundaries, set up, you know, the environment itself. And it's actually possible. That means giving responsibility only to that position leader, I think is silly, right? And it's very, I guess it's like, I don't take responsibility. It's your responsibility because you are a leader. And that's really big pressure on leaders. I mean, I believe, you know, that part of that is as well.
Don't get me wrong. There is a time and a place for that.
Of course.
Of that leadership that needs to be like that, where it's, you know, it's hierarchy and it's set, that obviously sets expectations and, you know, accountability, etc. But when it comes to decisions like that affects the group, then everybody should have a say and have a play in it. And it was actually interesting, and I'm just reflecting over the conversation with those two individuals. I remember probably 4 months ago, one of the apprentices actually asked me, she goes, "What keeps you motivated to come to work?" And I, you know, when I answered that question to her, I was just like, it's the ability to make a change or an impact in someone's life. Yeah, I mean, like, I look at it from a point of view where, you know, I was very fortunate as an apprentice, and the mentors and the managers and the supervisors that I had that have molded me into who I am today. And don't get me wrong, they had their, as everyone does, has their positives and negatives. And some of their negatives, I've seen how they operate, and I don't want to be associated how they operate. So that's how, again, I've learned from observing, like my daughter looking at me. And I said, like, I look at it and says, if I can provide you with a level of knowledge and skill that when you finish your apprenticeship, that you can go into any job and successfully apply for the job and attain that job, then I've done my job right. Yeah. And it's very interesting, you know, especially like I look at that individual that when we were speaking, like, she is a future leader within our business.
Yeah, that's nice.
And she's an apprentice at the moment. Do you know what I mean? Like, she has a lot of room to grow within this business, and she does not probably know her own strength in that part. So, you know, again, I have a conversations with her, and I keep, you know, reinforcing that belief that she will be that leader. You know, like, she takes on so much more than probably what she doesn't realize. And it's very, like, for me, that is, like, again, probably the reason why it keeps me motivated coming to work every day.
This is such an important moment.
Yeah,
I really want to reflect on that because I will get emotional. Because it really takes a few minutes. It takes one person believing you that can change all your life. And I know that from my personal journey, but I also know when I talk to people, that means what you did when you say someone that you believe they can be future leader because they have that in them, like they can grow. You created massive service for her. Like you really, really serve her with trusting herself and looking at herself a different way. From that day, she was probably looking at herself totally different. You know, she sees that she is actually better, or she's not better, but she actually can stand out, you know, and she can actually grow and she can learn and she can have actually better future. And what if in her life no one ever told her that, you know? That means you basically save one person.
That's exactly right. And that's, again, I think that's the other part of us as leaders as well, and managers. And again, I probably shouldn't say managers, but just as leaders, because
everyone.
Everyone. If you can make a change to one person's life, I can guarantee you, like, you would not understand the impact that has on an individual. You know.
Yeah, absolutely.
I had a mentor. Well, I wouldn't say a mentor, but I had a tradesperson when I was an apprentice, and he had that conversation with me like I had with that individual, and that set me on my path.
And you can see, and you give it back because you know that influence.
I forward it on, and
it's so nice. Ripple effect.
Yeah, correct. Because like I remember, and that's the reason why I set myself a goal to be off the tools at 30. Because he says, like, look at me, Adam. He says, I'm 45, right? He says, I've got, my knees are failing, my shoulders are failing. He says, like, don't end up like me. And I said to him, okay, but my question was why? Like, why don't I end up? He says, like, again, don't get me wrong. He says, you have probably more to add to in a more of a leadership role than you do as an electrician. And that was his own words to me. And that's what set me on my path, was like, okay, cool. I'm setting myself a goal to be off the tools by 30. I want to be looking at myself in a leadership role or a managerial role where I can provide that support and guidance to individuals. And that's where I feel like I've landed in my situation at the moment and where I'm at my point in time. But has that stopped? No, because I'm continue obviously learning, understanding, and developing myself to again influence and make an impact on individuals wherever I go.
Yeah, I love that. I really appreciate it because, as you said, you know, everyone should do that in their life, just to say things. You know, sometimes we see that things can be said. You know, we see that person needs a little bit of, you know, encouragement, or we know that the person can be something more, but we don't say it. And when we start to say those things, I always say that's kind of, you know, advertisement of kindness, right? Like we actually create that ripple effect, and those people will give it back to someone else. That means we actually can grow naturally other leaders because we know how that conversation impacted us. And yeah, that's really nice. And look, I probably want to like kind of wrap up there because that's probably the best probably end of conversation I can kind of imagine. But yeah, it's really cool just to go back to that normal human beings, right? Like being real, kind human being that share their opinions, you know, with love, you know, share their feedback with love because they know that feedback can help someone so much in life. And
feedback is critical, and it's good, bad, or different. Do you know what I mean? It's feedback is feedback, and like as long as it's constructive, it's not one-sided. You'll find that can make an impact on someone's life massively. And don't get me wrong, I don't take kindly to feedback in certain aspects. Because, you know, sometimes I feel like I'm attacked. But again, like that feedback I gave to that individual, like I said, I'm hoping that continues to fuel her drive and her passion for her job. And, you know, I look back and, you know, I'll be that 45, 50-year-old that looks back and I see that individual in a leadership role and I can say, look, hey, you know, that was, I'm not saying it was me that actually got her there, but it might have been that conversation that started that catalyst where she then started looking at opportunities to start moving up and then actually developing herself to become that leader within the business. Yeah,
and I absolutely believe that was a starter or that will be starter because that's what I experienced in my life. And I was like 2 minutes conversation with my teacher. And sadly, it took me 25 years to call her back and tell her actually thank you. And I was so happy because she was so excited and crying. And, you know, maybe that day she realized that actually my job, being a teacher, really had purpose, you know, and I was so happy that I can give it back, you know, to someone who gave me something. And, yeah, look, I think this is so important. I think this is the most important part of leadership. And I hope someone will get inspired by this conversation because this is really, really important for helping people. Making them better human beings and helping them to grow. And before we jump off, I'll probably ask if you can maybe say in like 1 or 2 sentences very shortly, what is I don't want to call it change. I want to call it probably what do you think was the most valuable part working together? Like, did you have any insights, aha moments, or anything that really, really helped you?
Yes, I definitely say I definitely had some aha moments, and some of them that I was definitely self-aware of. You know, you've helped me definitely get through and break down a few more barriers of what that is. It's been a really great journey over the last 6 months because I've learned not just a lot on my own self and how I operate and how I, you know, react and think and, you know, just move in general. It's been also looking at people around me, the environment I'm surrounded by, and how that influences not myself and also my team as well. And that I think that's probably been the big ones for me. Really, those aha moments is that you as a leader, you're in charge of that environment, and you set that standard and expectation of that environment. So if you're sloppy and, you know, lax, then people will be sloppy and laxed around you. So it's just. I'd say probably they're the key ones I've learned through this journey, and really probably my journey of self too, not just always focusing on work, looking at how I can keep my fuel going as well.
Yeah, oh, that's so important. And there are basically the last 3 days of conversations with people. How important is actually try to understand how we can manage our energy because it's so important. And as a leader, you need a lot of that.
Yeah, no, definitely,
Yeah.
definitely, I agree.
And before we jump off, one last thought or something, because I like to finish with, something that you would love to maybe say to people they want to become leaders or someone that is already a leader and feels a little bit tired, exhausted. What will be your advice?
It will get better. It will get
I love it.
I know, but it will. Like you might be sitting and you might be listening to this podcast right now, and you're thinking about yourself, going like, "Oh, like the world is falling around me, and everything seems to be crumbling around me." But that's only you in this moment. It will get better. It will take a turn, and it will take a turn for the better because tomorrow's a new day, and what happened today, it won't carry on tomorrow. And if you approach it like that, and I've had to learn to do that myself, is that tomorrow's a new day. You start afresh, and you just get on with it. You know what I mean? And then at the end of the day, you go to bed, you wake up, and it's a new day again. You wake up, you're breathing, the sun's shining, and you know what? You're alive. So it's not all doom. It's not all doom and gloom as you're probably thinking in this situation you are right now.
Yeah, nice. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Alex. I appreciate it. And yeah, like I said, anybody wants to reach out and connect with me, by all means, happy to do so. And we can have a catch up over a cup of coffee if you want to. So
yeah, I love that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for offering that. Thank you very much for your time.
No, thank you very much, Alex.